I'm standing in front of the Toronto Harbour Commission building. Now, if you're a time traveler or around 110 years old, you may remember this building being right on the water. Now, it's no longer on the water and is no longer used to manage Toronto's waterfront and courts. Instead, it's home to a steakhouse that is a bit past its prime and is around 350 meters from the water's edge. Now, isn't it just crazy to think that how right where I'm standing is where in 1919, a German U-boat that the US got their hands on was right here, docked in front of the Toronto Harbour Commission after World War I on a parade for victory bonds. Now, I don't know what's crazier, that, or if you're sitting on your condo south of Harbour Street right now, you may be wondering how it is that your condo is standing on a bunch of landfill and who knows what of waste, garbage, dead, decomposing things. You see, Toronto's industrial waterfront was growing so fast that they were constantly filling in the lake so that they could expand the waterfront further south and have more land to build on. The street that was fronting on the water first was called Front Street. Then the waterfront expanded even further south and we created Lakeshore Boulevard. Then a new street was built along the harbor, so it became Harbour Street. The city expanded one final time to give us the waterfront that we have today, with Queens Quay, a quay being an area on the harbour front where boats can dock at the lakeshore. In case you didn't notice, I just used all 4 previous waterfront street names in that sentence. Now, if we look at some historical maps, like this one from 1827, you can see here's the intersection of Yonge and Front Street, and the most southern intersection east of Yonge is Front and Church Street, if you can believe it, which is where the Gooderham building, also known as the Flatiron, was built in 1892. Anything south of the Front Street you know today was just water. You have to look at a map from 1870 to see the first hint of waterfront expansion. This was when the Esplanade was now the most southern road. The next map you can find from the archives would be 1902, and you can see the creation of Harbour Street then, as well as Lake Street. Queens Quay was then created in 1920, and you can see it on a map of the city from 1940. Now let's head over there, and as I walk down Bay Street to get to the waterfront, let me tell you a bit about why this expansion happened. There's a lot of honking noise, traffic, crazy Toronto, hustle bustle. Here it's a little quieter, so I can talk to you. See, downtown Toronto and its waterfront was built solely with trading in mind because it made the most sense. Having a large hub right on the water, where all the goods were being sent and received by boat, just made the most sense. Toronto was quickly outgrowing the available land, so they just kept building further and further south so they could have a bigger industrial hub, basically, and keep their ports. There weren't any real residences in the area, and nobody wanted to live here because since it was all industrialized, just all soot, grime, and smoke in the air, and it was dirty, just nobody wanted to be near that. So even people working the corporate jobs downtown on Bay Street in the financial district then didn't want to live downtown because it was so close to the industrialization. Because of this, people moved to more of the outskirts and in the suburbs, and that's actually what led to the need for the construction of our highways, the DVP and the Gardiner, to get all those workers to be able to commute into the industrial area, into the financial district where the corporate jobs are as well. Those were both completed in the 1950s and 60s. Now in the 70s was what kind of started to get this area away from industrialization and more to how it is today. Because in the 70s, the world was going through an urban revolution, and many waterfront cities started to repurpose their waterfronts and move their industrial ports away from their downtown cores. Toronto followed suit with the rest of the world, but not much action was really taken until we entered the 21st century, when Toronto put in a bid to host the 2008 Summer Olympics. The Prime Minister at the time assembled a task force for this so that they could better their odds of being selected for the 2008 Summer Olympics to develop the waterfront. Toronto did eventually lose the bid to Beijing, as most of you may know, as that's already happened. But the federal, provincial, and city government were still keen on revamping the waterfront here. So in 2001, they established Waterfront Toronto, which is a permanent and independent organization meant to lead the renewal of Toronto's waterfront. In this video, I'm focusing on Queens Quay East, which is the stretch of Queens Quay east of Yonge. Queens Quay East is in 2 different sub-areas. You have the main area, which is called East Bayfront, and that runs from Jarvis all the way to Parliament. Between Yonge and Jarvis, which is where we are now, is part of the Central Waterfront. The Central Waterfront is the most developed part of the Toronto waterfront area and runs from Bathurst all the way to Jarvis. Today, I'm focusing on the East Bayfront area because there is lots of development happening in the area. The first building on the East Bayfront is the Toronto Star building, which was built in 1971 and was the headquarters for the news company until 2022 when they moved to the Well. Now, the building is mainly empty office space
and will eventually be torn down and replaced with office space from Pinnacle, which is the condo development taking place on this entire block of land here. As I'm heading east on Queens Quay, you'll also notice the trail here, which is the Martin Goodman Trail. This trail is one of the longest continuous trails in North America and is named after the former president of the Toronto Star. The trail is over 20 kilometers long and runs from Humber Bridge in the west all the way to the beaches in the east. Here, you have the NBA Courtside Restaurant, which just opened this past spring, so they're coming up on their 1-year anniversary. This is the first ever NBA Courtside restaurant in the world, and I believe it's still the only one. I haven't been, but the reviews about the food are actually really good, which surprised me. I expected it to be a classic sports bar, but it seems to be more of an upscale premium version. Now right behind me is the newest building in the Pier 27 condo phases. The final phase is still in the approval process, and I'll show you that site in just a second. It's all on this block of land, but just behind me is the newest and tallest building, and it was complete in 2021. And on the ground floor level, that's where the NBA Courtside Restaurant, which is what we just saw, is. So this whole section of condos was built in collaboration with CityZen and Fernbrook Homes. This is the building I was just sitting in front of. It's the tallest on the lot so far and is completed in 2021. The building in the back there with the bridge, along with this one with the bridge, were the first to be completed in phase 1, and they were complete in 2013, also part of the Pier 27 condos. So this is phase 1, this was also phase 1, both completed in 2013, and even as it goes along here, that is all the same building. All completed in 2013, and then this right here is their sales center currently, but this whole block of land here, along with this dirt here, is part of phase 3. Now phase 3 is still in the approval process. It would be right where I just mentioned, and they're looking to build a 45-story tower here, an 11-story tower there. Now that is Sugar Wharf Condos, their 2 towers, which is where we're heading next, and this LCBO was part of their development by Menkes, and this is where the old LCBO used to be, this whole plot of land, the old LCBO flagship store, as well as their offices, which were this facade that they're doing there. Menkes bought the land from LCBO, and then with this development said they'll give them a home with a new office and a new store, which they did, and now the old land there is where the second phase of Menkes Sugar Wharf Condos will be. Sugar Wharf Condos getting their name, of course, from across the street, with Redpath being right there, and Redpath is a sugar refinery plant, which I'll talk about right after we talk about Sugar Wharf Condos. And this is where the new Sugar Wharf condos are. The whole development on this block was complete just this past year. Menkes is a highly regarded developer with a great reputation and has built some iconic Toronto buildings, including 1 York, 25 York, and a building we'll see shortly. Unfortunately, Sugar Wharf has fallen flat on its face. The build quality itself and the amenities are great, along with the stunning views you get in many of the units, but all you really hear from people about the building is that there's constant fire alarms, there's already been flooding damage, and that property management just really isn't doing much, and there's no communication. This is one of the buildings I just stay away from until they decide to improve things. Now this here is the famous Redpath Sugar Refinery. It is one of 2 last pieces of standing history showing that Toronto's waterfront used to be just for industrial purposes. The second we'll be heading to at the very end of Queens Quay, where it meets with Parliament. Now Redpath Sugar Refinery here was opened in 1958 and is still in operation to this day, the last standing piece of Toronto's historical industrial era that is still in operation. They receive their sugarcane from Caribbean and Brazil and then process it into the sugar crystals that you use for all your purposes. The ships, which you commonly see docked here, travel across the Atlantic Ocean, then they come through the St. Lawrence Seaway. I'll bring up Google Maps so you can see how the boats actually make it from giant ocean into Lake Ontario. They also have a museum on site so you can check out the history of Redpath and everything, because it is actually pretty interesting. And you can go in the museum. They have kind of weird operating hours and you have to like sometimes call before if you want to go in, but if you do your research on it, you can get in there and check it out. They also participate in Doors Open, which this year is taking place May 25th and 26th, and that's when they open historic sites and infrastructure sites like the water treatment plant and Redpath here. They just let you go in and check it out. So if you ever bought a bag of Redpath sugar, this is where it comes from. Now there are a few debates about the refinery and about whether it should get demolished or not, because it's prime real estate really. I mean, what do you think? Let me know down below if you think it should go or if it should stay. The city's super avid about keeping it here because it is a heritage site and they do have it protected, and the large amount of jobs that it provides. I can tell you though, the one big divide is about the smell. Some people say it smells like graham crackers.
Others, like myself, really don't like the smell. Even now in the winter when it's less pungent, I guess you could say. I don't really like the smell. I get the graham crackers. I kind of get a hint of it, burnt sugar kind of smell, but not for me. On a hot summer day, it's even worse. It just smells like a combination of rotting fish with like a hint of sweetness that it just kind of makes you want to like just take one more little sniff to be like, what is that? But it'll make you violently ill, possibly. So personal preference, I guess, but not for me, the smell. And this whole section here is where the big ships coming from Brazil and the Caribbean with their sugarcane would load into, and that big piece of machinery is what moves all the sugarcane into the plant so it can get refined down into the sugar crystals that you buy at the grocery store. That is the Sugar Wharf condos that we have been seeing and talking about. This is the LCBO building, which is also home to Canada Goose. Then you have Loblaws here, which I'm not really sure on the history of. I couldn't find anything. It's been there as long as I know of. I'm not sure if the building was ever used for anything, but in historical photos, I don't see the building there, whereas I do see Redpath in those photos. That right there is the tippy top of the CN Tower. So if anyone knows what the Loblaws there used to be before they built that, let us all know in the comments down below and educate us. And then where I'm standing now and recording actually is Sugar Beach, which is super popular in the summer. But again, if you're not a fan of the smell, you don't want to be sunbathing here and tanning in the summer. But I mean, it's nice. You can't go in the water from here, but I get what the idea was. In the background there, you may see the sign that says Corus, and that's what we're going to talk about next. This whole block of buildings here, which is the block of, I guess you would call tech or corporate offices, as well as George Brown. And also, side note about that Loblaws here, it is also, just like Sugar Wharf, a prime piece of real estate. And there's lots of rumors and talks about demolishment, but I haven't seen anything. Oh my God, this scared me. Almost dropped my phone in the water. See a plane landing at Billy Bishop there. So yeah, anyways, rumors of Loblaws being redeveloped here because it's super prime real estate. If there is a solid plan submitted, I really don't see it getting approved in the current state we're in, because this is the only grocery store to serve a large part of Toronto. Distillery, Corktown, Moss Park, and St. Lawrence, all those neighborhoods, they only have this Loblaws here as their grocery store and the No Frills on Front Street, and that's really not many options. There's been numerous news articles published in the local newspaper here, as well as some of the major ones, about how this is such a food desert, and the No Frills on Front Street is actually already facing demolition, and that one is going to go through at some point. So unless they provide some new grocery stores in the area, I don't see it getting approved, because there would be nowhere to get your groceries aside from the Farm Boy, and the Farm Boy is in the LCBO building over there, and they built that when Menkes finished their project there. But I just, it's always empty. I don't see many people shopping there because it's super inaccessible if you get a lot of groceries. With a grocery cart and stuff and you're moving it to your car, it's just not an accessible design they have there with escalators, the doors. You can't bring your shopping carts out a certain distance to the elevator to parking, and the prices are high, so it really doesn't serve a good part of the community, especially with them getting rid of No Frills, which is a more budget-friendly grocery store. Now this right here is Jarvis, which we crossed, because over there is Sugar Wharf, and we came from Pier 27, which was on the other side, and that was Yonge Street. So this is Jarvis now, and we've crossed Jarvis, so we're on the east side of Jarvis, which means we're now officially entering the East Bayfront area. And the East Bayfront area runs all the way to Parliament and is where all the action has been happening in terms of development. I mean, just while we're walking around here, it is a beautiful day. Look at the sun shining. It really is a nice day. I think it's like 5 degrees. Perfect day for a video though. Look at the water. It actually looks clean. We know it's not. So this whole section of buildings between Sugar Beach and Sherbourne Commons was where the first developments in the East Bayfront took place. The George Brown Waterfront campus located here first opened in 2012, and the headquarters for Corus Entertainment, which I'm standing in front of now, completed construction and opened in 2010. So where the score is, this whole section of buildings is actually new. They were actually just complete in 2021, and everybody started moving in early 2022, and these were not here a few years ago. It was just Corus, this building here, and George Brown. I'll see if I can pull up some old street map views to show you what it used to look like. Now, there was actually a bit of controversy with the Corus building when it first opened because the nearly $160 million was fully funded by Toronto taxpayer money, and Corus would then rent the space from Toronto and get a tax break on the first 20 years of their lease. The city's idea behind this, though, was that this is the first development taking place on the waterfront here. It's an innovative company, and so it would bring people here, and it was better than the super minuscule amount of taxes they were bringing in from what was here on the land before. So it was an increase in taxes even though they had a tax break. And Corus, by the way, is a media company with multiple television and radio shows that are their programs. So I'll put a full list up, but some that you may know are HGTV, Food Network, Global TV, Q107 is the radio station, and as the one in the garage there, 102.1, The Edge. Now, as mentioned, the tax break and moving Corus here was to be the first ones here and to attract a more tech-focused, innovative companies to the area and turn it into what it is basically now, because you have the Waterfront Innovation Center, which I pointed out earlier, which was developed by Menkes and complete late 2021. And so it can be argued that it worked, and the tax break that they gave ended up working out and bringing in more tech companies, resulting in more tax revenue for the city. So this all used to be surface level parking, and it was just Corus and George Brown. And now this is the Waterfront Innovation Center developed by Menkes. This is George Brown's waterfront campus. And then what they're building right next to it right here, new George Brown building that they're building. And now this plot of land is full. No more buildings can be built. Dividing the offices and George Brown from the residential is Sherbourne Commons. Sherbourne Commons, along with everything else in the area, opened in 2010, and it has a splash pad, which you can see there, which doubles as a skating rink, which it is now in the winter, but I mean, it hasn't been very cold, so I don't know the quality of that right now. And then just below us, there's the UV water treatment plant. And the purpose of that is to take the storm water and treat it so that it can be then sent back into the lake. And so now the storm water goes into the lake nice and clean, and it typically flows through here, but with it being winter, it's not operating right now. And so it's a nice little water feature that combines city infrastructure with parks, and that flows right out back to the lake. Now, here's the residential area. This area is referred to as a few things, the main one being Bayside Village, which was named that by Dietterle, who has developed all the condos here, along with Hines in partnership with them. This is technically still the East Bayfront area, but the residence section here is all called Bayside Village. Now, all the condos here are part of a large-scale community development by Dietterle and Hines. Dietterle being one of, if not the most reputable condo developers in all of Canada, and Hines being a global real estate firm who has participated in some of the largest and most prominent real estate developments all across the world. Now, Dietterle has 4 different condo projects here. First one was Aquilina, and they were completed in 2017. That was shortly followed after by the completion of Aqua Vista in 2018. And then there was a hiatus during COVID, and in 2021 was the completion of Aquabella. The final development, which is set to be complete, is Aqualuna, and that's set to be complete in 2025 and will be home to all the ultra luxury units. In the future, I'll do a complete video on Aqualuna so you can see what the plans are and what it's going to look like, because it really is such a cool and unique development that's coming to the area, and I don't think we've ever really seen anything like it in Toronto. All the Aqua buildings are great to live in. All of them have ground floor retail as well. There's still quite a few vacancies because it just hasn't been a good time to open a new restaurant or retail store. I imagine as the area gets more complete as the years go on and the retail and restaurant industry kind of fully gets back into it, then we'll see less vacancies and more shops filled in. So that is Bayside Village there. That's Aquabella. This is Aqualuna, which will be done come 2025, late 2024. And this is where Queens Quay East curves up, reaches Lakeshore, and turns into Parliament Street. And this is where there's quite a bit of development happening. The whole area, I mean, I guess it's like 350 meter circle radius. There's a bunch of development happening here, and I'm going to tell you all about it right now. These tall silos here are the second piece of history showing that Toronto's waterfront used to be just for industrial use. These silos were used to store soybeans, as from 1944 to 1991, there was a soybean processing facility here to make all kinds of soy products. The land use here has just been up in limbo for quite some time now. In the early 2000s, it was a major tent city for 115 homeless people. Home Depot then bought the land and kicked them all out so they could open up a new store. But that never went through. The silos are a heritage site and there are no current proposals or approvals to demolish them. All future plans I've seen for the area are planned around the silos. Again, that's Aquabella, which is the latest one to be completed in 2021. And this is Aqualuna, set to be complete in 2024, 2025. Now, right here on the north side of Queens Quay is where another good amount of development is happening. You see, this budget rental is planned to be turned into 307 Lakeshore Boulevard East. So that's this plot of land. And then over there, which I'll backtrack and walk to, is going to be Quayside Impact. So 307 Lakeshore Boulevard will be right next to Quayside Impact, which they're actually already flattening out, even though nothing's been fully approved, but they know something's going to be done there and the buildings were vacant anyways, so they've started to demolish them. Now this is Small Street, which will separate the land from where the budget truck rental is, so that's 307 Lakeshore Boulevard, and then Quayside Impact will start on this side of the street here. So you can see, as I mentioned, they already started flattening it here and demolishing it to get it ready for the Quayside Impact project. So this land is just directly across from the Bayside Village, which is behind me. Now the proposal here is that Great Gulf will partner with Dreams Unlimited to create Quayside Impact. Quayside Impact will be an all-electric, net zero carbon master plan community that will bring all types of housing, including 800 affordable housing units. There will be 5 towers, including one, which will be the largest residential mass timber building in all of Canada. There will also be a 2.5-acre community forest. How close to the vision will the community be in actuality? I'm not too sure. It still has to go through a long approval process, and it's really in the early stages. They just submitted their first few plans for approval, and they're going through that process now. So this whole section here is part of Quayside Impact and what they're building. The final development planned here is 3C Waterfront. This will go on the next block of land east of the silos. This is planned to be a large-scale community development by 4 developers. They're in the super early stages and not much info is available yet. Also, I'm going to link all these projects and their applications below for any development nerds, and you can read through the 30+ page applications. Now for infrastructure, there's a lot planned. Queens Quay East here will no longer curve up. And the work they're doing on the Parliament slip, filling it in, as you can see they're working on it now, is to fill in that section of the lake so they can extend Queens Quay East here so it no longer curves up and instead goes directly straight and continues on towards Cherry Street and the Portlands. That will then allow for the new Waterfront LRT extension. So if you didn't already, the Queens Quay streetcar currently just runs from Bathurst to Bay, where it then loops into the Union Station. The extension will have the LRT and that transit line extend all the way along Queens Quay and connect to Cherry Street, where the distillery loop is, and will also connect to the Portlands, which is a whole other waterfront development taking place. The other connection to the Portlands will be right at the waterfront of the land where the silos are. There will be a pedestrian bridge connecting to the Villiers Islands there, and there's just so much happening here. I'll need to make a video for each of Aqualuna, the Portlands developments, and the full developments taking place right here at Queens Quay and Parliament. Now, all this development and infrastructure planning for the area sounds great on paper, because Toronto has a reputation for not doing their infrastructure developments, Eglinton LRT, in a timely manner. So completely filling up this area with a brand new road, plus then extending the LRT tracks for the streetcar from Bay to here will be a lot of work. Just look at Adelaide, for example, where the streetcar tracks already exist and how long it's taken them to do that and the mess it's become. It's going to be quite the project they're going to undertake here. The payoff, no doubt, will be amazing, but getting there is a strong pain point for many residents who are here currently, as well as future residents. Let me know what you think of the development that's going on here. I personally think it's really cool, and the area is going to be really, really cool in the future, because right now there's not much here. You can see it's on the come up, but it's just missing those things. and something like extending the transit here instead of having to take the Parliament bus would be really nice. For the actual condo developments, I hope we don't just densify the area without planning. Keeping density in mind is really important when improving these projects, because you don't want to end up with something where now all these buildings are here and they didn't plan for it. So there's nowhere to get groceries, there's nowhere to do these things, there's long lines for transit, there's crazy traffic coming in and out. The last thing you want to happen is for the area to become overburdened and feel claustrophobic and become somewhere like City Place, where it's just so many people living in one area that it's just too dense. So we explored Queens Quay East and Toronto's evolving waterfront, from its industrial roots to the urban space it's become today. The city and Waterfront Toronto are creating a vibrant and accessible waterfront for everybody in Toronto now today. I highly encourage you to come check it out on a nice sunny day, even a day like today where it's kind of cold out, but not super cold where I don't need a hat, but maybe some gloves. It's perfect to check it out, as long as the sun's out. If you have any questions about the area and the condos that are here or will be here in the future, feel free to let me know. My contact information is always down in the description as usual, so feel free to reach out with any questions. If you want more info or regular updates on what is happening here, head to waterfronttoronto.ca. It's with one T. I'll put it down in the description below, and I'll spell it on the screen. They have all the info on different infrastructure projects that are happening here. They have all the info on different city infrastructure projects that are happening here. So not private stuff, but things like the Portlands, the Queens Quay extension of the LRT, and extension of Queens Quay itself. That's all there. And they send out a monthly newsletter that updates you on what's happening and how the progress is, like how the new Cherry Street Bridge opened, stuff like that. So let me know what you thought of this video. This is my second neighborhood video now. If you think there was too much talk about the history, let me know. Not enough talk about history, let me know. If you want to see more of condos, more of houses, more of the amenities in the area instead, let me know, and I'll definitely do that. I always appreciate your feedback, so thank you in advance. If you're interested in learning more about unique Toronto neighborhoods, don't hesitate to reach out. This guy is like military training his dog in the back. Anyway, my contact info is always down in the description below. Remember to subscribe for more Toronto real estate content. Thanks for watching. I think I'm kind of enjoying these neighborhood videos, especially as the weather gets nicer, it'll probably be better. So let me know maybe what neighborhood you want to see next, and I'll do that. I'm definitely going to make videos about Aqualuna as well as what's going on in the Portlands, and more about the specific developments that are taking place, such as Quayside Impact and 3C Waterfront. But each of those will be its own separate video because there's a lot to go into about those projects and what's happening. So thanks for watching. Take care.